I'll pick the easy ones.
How we get to wrestle?
So I'll start a little bit and then jump in. So the other thing we want to say, if you have questions, feel free to just barge in and ask questions as we go. That way we're sure you're not falling asleep. Already having issues.
There you go.
There you go. All right. Is everybody here familiar with NELHA somewhat, or should I quickly summarize? Yeah, quickly summarize. Okay, so we're a state agency. We focus on economic development, generally in the areas of energy and marine science. We have about 40 clients on 870 acres park, and you're really just at the top of it in the Gateway Center. The road actually goes all the way down, if you haven't already been there, all the way down to the end, about 4 miles from here. So 870 acres wrapped around the airport. One of the more important activities that we do here is maintain a seawater system, both for deep sea water and surface sea water. So for the purposes of this talk, we're sort of focusing on that important activity. In the past, our goal for the seawater system has been to maintain a maximum uptime. And we're pretty proud at NELHA that we have maintained over the years a 99% uptime for our seawater system. And we've been able to do that because we've got a lot of redundancy built into the system, both in the number of pump stations and within each pump station the number of pumps. We also have a set of alarms. We have people on call who are able to come down here at the drop of a hat and address any issues. So really the only downtime we have is maintenance, and we try to keep that at a minimum and no longer than 2 hours any given time period. And we also have pretty conservative set points. So we operate within the range of our pumps, well within the ranges of the desired parameters for our pumps. We're now moving towards a secondary goal, which is to not only maintain our uptime, but on top of that, reduce costs and improve efficiency. And we believe that we can do that through the establishment of a data acquisition system with a historian so that we can collect a lot of data and we can data mine that. And also modernizing our equipment, going towards an Ethernet-based type of system. Adding a research component, and I'll touch base on that a little bit later in the talk. And also adding more flexible controls. So as opposed to the settings that we have now with a fixed pressure that we would never want to change, we would want to explore changes in that so that we can improve on the efficiency of the entire system and reduce the cost. So we started doing this or so about 2 years ago. 2013, 2014 is really where we were able to put this in place with the help of some consultants. One of them was Kaufman Engineers. Another one is actually sitting in the audience right now. So if you have hard questions, he's also a good one to address them too. But the funding for this was from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, and also NELHA, so state funds as well. And we have been working with NREL, Sandia National Laboratories, HELCO, and the County of Hawaii, as well as with some private folks like the Gala Nabaloni, Makai Ocean Engineering, Akion, and Imagy, which are battery startup systems, or companies, excuse me. This is just to give you, especially for those of you who are not familiar with the site, a broad overview of the NELHA Park. With all of the stars are essentially, oh interesting, they came out as not orange, but they should be a different color. All the stars are basically our telemetry locations. And so you can see we're really spread out. We have a large pump station down here, which is what we call our 55-inch pump station. 55-inch because the pipelines are 55-inch in diameter. And that, although we consider it one station, it's really composed of three. It has the main 55-inch station that's pumping the water that goes down, comes from 3,000-foot depth and 80-foot depth through the surface. A booster pump station, which pushes the deep sea water up to the top of the park, and an interim pump station, which pushes the surface sea water to about mid-distance. There are 2 other pump stations, one in the Ka'u area, right here, and there's the research campus pump station, which is down here. Our main admin offices are down at the research campus, and that's also where the master system is. All of the data is sent to that location. And on the left-hand side is a sort of a blow-up of the research campus with locations within the research campus. So there's a testbed, PV testbed that we recently installed. That's the area highlighted in yellow. We can talk a little bit about that a little bit later, as well as a couple of different areas. Our MET station, we have a state-of-the-art MET station that was installed in 2012, late 2012. And maybe I'll go over here. This area right over here is where all of the variable frequency drives for our research campus pump station are basically located in this area. And of course, Mackay Ocean Engineer, for those who are not familiar with the site down there, that's the site of the ocean thermal energy conversion plant test facility. The type of data that we're collecting is really 4 different areas. We have, of course, MET station data, everything that goes with, state-of-the-art MET station, wind temperature, wind speed, and most importantly, because we're starting to do energy projects down there, is solar resource data. So we have sensors that will help collect the solar resource information. On the pump stations, anything that has to do with the variable frequency drive data, we're collecting that. On the laboratory side, this is information that has to do with the flow, the pressures, the temperatures of the various pipelines with the various waters from different depths and different areas and different stations. And finally, this is sort of a new area for us, is the energy area, which is on top of all of this, we're also needing to monitor our energy usage, and we're doing that by having installed a variety of meters throughout the research campus, which eventually we will expand into the other areas and the other pump stations that are in the NELHA host park. So of course we have some challenges. I mean, if we didn't, it wouldn't be fun at all. So the first challenge is a geographical challenge, and we're on 870 acres, so we need to develop a Scada system that basically can get to all the different areas of our park. The next one is a technical challenge. It's a one-of-a-kind system. We can't just go to Radio Shack and buy components and piece it together. It's just not going to work. Also, we're in a marine environment, so that makes it particularly fun to maintain sensors in a marine environment. And the sheer volume and the sheer size of what we have out here, people don't always realize, but we pump 30 million gallons of seawater combined in a day. That's pretty much the same as the Alaska pipeline. Now, if only it was the same value of oil, that would be nice, but it's not. But needless to say, it's a system that's of that magnitude, and to get an idea of how much that really corresponds to, it's about the equivalent of 60 standard 40-foot containers per hour. That's how much water is coming through that system, and that's how much water we're having to move around the facility.
Laurence?
Yes?
Are you going to say eventually where, I know it goes to people, right? Is there a place where a whole lot of it gets dumped? It seems like a lot of...
Delivered.
But, it all gets
Delivered, yeah. Delivered is the right word.
Oh, okay.
It goes to all the clients. So there are about 40 clients in the facility. All of those clients combined use the majority of that water. Very little of it. A little bit of it is dumped, as you say, just to make sure that we have through flow on some of the pipelines. There's an area right up here, but that's minimal. Probably 20 GPM at most, 20 gallons per minute. Very small compared to the 20,000 GPM that we run as a whole.
All right, my turn. So Laurence spoke about the meteorological station. I'm really excited about this. We've been operating this station for about 2 years. So we have a couple pictures here of what it looks like. It's basically this erector set thing that's as you're coming into the research campus area, right by the front gate there. We have this erector set thing, and it has a wind and global solar. We have we have precipitation, temperature, and several other sensors. So here's the key thing I wanted you guys to get out of this is we don't have a public portal right now to serve out the data. We're serving it out via NREL. So if you want to collect data, you want to see what the temperature is or what the solar incidence is at this moment in time, you just go to this website. So get out your pen, write it down. And I want to show you a couple of things about that, which I think is really cool. As a scientist, I always have difficulty finding this data. It's like, okay, what was the rain last week? It's really hard to find it. So if you just go to that website, you can basically pull up a sheet here, a website where you can put in the date that you want or a group of dates, and it'll either plot out a pretty picture. So we'll just say today, and we'll hit air temperature. And let me see if I can get this to move. And I'm just going to hit the submit button, and it should plot out a nice little pretty picture of what the air temperature was today. And I think that's really cool. So the other thing that's really, really cool is that if you wanted to just download the data, let's just say that you're interested in relative humidity, and you wanted 1 minute data, you can just click over here, and then you hit the submit button, and it dumps the data right onto the browser. You can then bring it into your Excel spreadsheet or do whatever the hell you want with it. I don't know. I'm kind of crazy, but it's kind of interesting to me.
So Keith,
Yes.
you have a very good memory, say? We could go to the NELHA general website here, it would be on there somewhere.
Yep, there's a link on there from our website, and I'm not quite clear where
It's on the resources page, so just go to the resources page and there it will be obvious. It's like the second item in the list.
So it's kind of, the other thing I want to show is you can also plot things out in English or metric. So there's a little thing here that you can check off. I'm just going to show the solar data that we have. I think this is from yesterday, 29th, yesterday. So here we have two sensors. I believe we have a PAR sensor. Oh, it's relative humidity versus I have two things clicked off. So you can click two things or three things, multiple things, and plot them all out. So I think this is really interesting for those that are craving more meteorological data and want the data in little segments like 1 minute or even second intervals. You can download all that. So that's the meteorological station. So should we go right to the...
Yeah, I would go to the...
So we have it up and live right now, our Scada system. And we usually like to look at this page because this page kind of represents the whole facility. It's kind of confusing. There's a lot of data on there. We see on the right side, or actually on your left side over here, is the pumps. We kind of have it a line diagram. So we have all these pumps. And then the line diagram kind of shows all of the flows, the distribution of the pipeline system. And they're kind of tagged with numbers here. They're defined by the diameter of the pipe. So we have a 24-inch North Fork. We have a 28-inch. So, and the red ones are the surface seawater, and the blue ones are the deep sea water. So we have this whole distribution. We're measuring a lot of different things on this diagram, so it feeds us a lot of information. We can see immediately real-time flow data. We can also see the temperature, the pressure. We have a couple of laboratory things, so we're measuring turbidity and dissolved oxygen in certain locations. So it's kind of an interesting diagram. It's really helpful for us. So what's cool about this, and we'll get into a little bit later, but I just want to show you can kind of just click any of these little boxes here, and you can display a historical graph of what's going on. So that's kind of neat, and you can set ranges, and you can see the data. This is that historian that Laurence was talking about. All of this is being stored, and we can grab data, and we can plot things against each other. So right now, I just pulled up the North Fork, I think, flow, and you can kind of see the flow rate as it's varying. It doesn't vary too much. It's somewhere between maybe 600-700 gallons per minute.
What do these close happen to the spike there?
Most of the time we don't know.
Oh.
Unless something went off or on or whatever, I'm not quite sure. Although what I can tell you is pump system is the controlling pump system. It's controlled on pressure. So if there was someone opened a valve and the pressure dropped, that pump would then spool up very quickly to maintain the pressure, the set point.
That's pumps out by the lighthouse?
Yes. Those are the controlling pumps, and then we have others that are on steady state. So that's what they mean when they talk about variable frequency drive. The set point for the variable frequency is the pressure. So when someone opens a valve up, the pressure drops in the pipe, and the pump kind of spools up and maintains that pressure. So our clients will never have a valve that opens up and water doesn't come out.
It could also be bad data. So this is the raw data that you're seeing. So not all of it. Especially if you see a spike like that,
it could be just
it's a bad piece of data.
But you also had a step change in the data there about 3 o'clock today.
Yep.
That's real?
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of different step changes. Actually, if you want to see step changes, we can take a look at the booster pump. And that's a great example of step changes. Mm-hmm. So this is a 24-hour period, and right around 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, people start work, right? And they kind of boost up. They're opening valves, filling tanks, and you can see things going pretty quickly at about 2,000 gallons per minute. Our steady state flows around maybe 900 gallons per minute. And you can see they shut the valve, turn the valve on, shut all through the day, and then they go home. So it's kind of nice to know this. We're really excited about kind of learning the behaviors of our clients so that we can maybe adjust the way we are pumping our water or adjust the pressures.
Who does that? Who turns their pump on and off that often?
Well, that's a secret. You have to come to the paid version of this.
Okay. No one-time fee.
No.
But we've never had this before. Before we would only have basically a monthly value. People have used this much seawater. We had no idea exactly what the behavior was, what the time series was in between during that month. So we really didn't have a mechanism or a way to decide and to manage the pumps depending on what the usage is and variation daily and monthly and seasonally. We didn't have a mechanism to do that. So this is going to allow us to do that.
Gives you a really good way to mess up the rate structure.
Well, actually, we'll get to that a little bit later. No, it's actually a really good way to find out what's a reasonable rate structure because now you're really looking
to justify messing up the rate structure.
So this is our real-time data. We're really excited about this. And hopefully this will allow us to better understand our system and improve upon it over time. So we'll go back to our regular scheduled PowerPoint.
Oh, you could just go back. Oh, you want to?
Do you have anything?
Well, maybe go to the main screen. And so this is the main screen and the different areas that we're looking at. So Keith sort of started with the more complicated version.
I always go complicated.
But really there's a dashboard which allows us to get into different areas of the system. So one of them is the weather. So that data that you saw on the NREL website, it's also available directly in our system. So that's going to allow us to make reports and to tie the energy data to the resource data to operations. Yes?
Good question. Since you're in close proximity to the Kona airport, do they have their own weather station, or do they use yours, or could they use yours in the future, or I was wondering on that.
They do have their own weather station, and I believe that they're probably required to have it.
Oh, because of FAA.
Because they're
okay.
Yeah, it's the National Weather Service official station. You guys don't count.
We're more of a research station.
Okay.
But what we are doing, just to add on that, we do calibrate our sensors on a every 2 years. So we just purchased a whole new set of sensors that we'll be putting on our weather station real soon, so that we can have zero downtime. Basically, I'll swap sensors and then send them out for recalibration. So we're really excited that we don't have any gaps in our data set over time.
So for the solar, I was going to add on to that, for the solar test bed and the battery energy storage system test beds, people want to know exactly what the sunlight is right there next to their unit. Not really, even though the airport's fairly close, they want to know if they're going to, tie their control algorithms to the solar resource that exists. They're going to want to need it right then and there. So that's one reason why it's important to have it at our research campus. So that's the weather side. There's also an ocean observatory, which we're moving towards, which is adding sensors and information on the water. Now, of course, we don't have sensors down at 3,000 foot depth, but we're pulling that water up and we're measuring up at the surface. So, we know what the temperature is down at 3,000 foot. We know what temperature is at 2,000 foot. Not that it changes a whole lot, but there's other pieces of information like turbidity and dissolved oxygen that could be important to our clients and that we're adding onto the system. So this is sort of work in progress in that area. Then the final area would be the energy area. And this is just a diagram of our microgrid, which we have all the makings of a microgrid. We don't have a full microgrid installed, but all the makings of a microgrid down at our research campus. And we've installed, you can see there's a variety of meters. There's the utility meter, the SCL, which is a revenue grade meter, which we can compare directly to the HELCO data. And then a variety of shark meters, which are tied to the PV, to our pumps, so we know exactly what the pump behavior is from an electrical perspective.
Because these are hooked up to the solar panels are in a negative value because we're pushing the energy in reverse direction.
And then also we're tying, so one aspect to this whole system is that we're leveraging the fact that we have this to try to attract new clients in the energy area. So people want to test their battery systems. Initially it was the PV systems and CSP systems, and we realized that that doesn't need a whole lot of work. Well, it still does, but not as much as the energy storage systems. And so we have a few initiatives out there to try to test out energy storage systems that might have value in the state of Hawaii. And we're working with the county of Hawaii and HELCO. We actually have an MOU with those folks so that we can pool resources to try to do some of this work. So that's why we have a whole area that's going to be devoted to battery, energy battery evaluations as well. And the Scada system allows us to collect all that data so that these folks don't have to install and develop a whole system just for a small battery testing.
By batteries, you mean just batteries or any kind of energy storage, like flywheels and stuff?
Yeah, actually any kind of energy storage. Where one of the units that we're looking to tie into that PV system is a flywheel from Amber Kinetics. So that would be one unit. There's a lithium battery folks that we're talking to. Right now what is installed in place is Akan system, which is a sodium battery, sodium ion battery. And we're also talking to Emergy, which is a company that does vanadium flow batteries, so different kinds. Right now those scales are on the order of 10 kW type of systems. Yeah, I didn't mean to take over.
No worries. I like it. So in the last segment is just a large or a bigger picture or overview of our pumping of deep sea water and surface sea water. You can see that we're about 10,000 gallons per minute or so. We get up to 12,000 gallons per minute for deep sea water and about 9,000 gallons per minute for surface sea water. So that's our Scada system, real-time live. It took a little time getting that up here.
So if I went to your just NELHA
No, not yet.
That's the next steps.
That's the next steps, definitely. So we went over the screenshots here. Oh, we forgot to go over the pumping stations, but we have pump stations. We have a whole series of things that we measure there. The Met station, research grid. Okay, this is the real meat and potato of the Scada system for those that are really interested in the cost of delivered water. So what we're able to do now is, because we have these electrical meters at our pump stations, we know the kilowatt usage of our pumps, and we also have flow meters, and we know the gallons per minute of flow for the electrical usage. So we can plot that, and this plot is a time plot. So the x-axis is time, and the y-axis is cents per k-gallon. And you can see how things change. There could be operating conditions that change the cost of delivered water. So we can now log in, maybe it's a pump, maybe it's a pressure, maybe it's just Helco dropping the price of energy. And we can see that in step changes, and we can adjust ourselves. Like Laurence was saying before, the only data that we were collecting was data that was on a clipboard on a monthly basis in pencil, and that didn't really help us a lot on a minute-to-minute basis. This is 15-minute means, so we collected at 15 minutes, and we take the mean of the flow, the mean of the electrical usage, and we plot that all out. So that's kind of cool. Did you have questions, Sid?
I was going to ask you how long the x-axis is.
Oh, the x-axis is 2 months.
Oh, I thought it was 15.
January and February.
Oh, each point is 15 minutes?
Yep.
So, and I think what's interesting there is that you see that step change down. I mean, it's a clear step change, right? And we know that that corresponds to the operation of a different set of pumps. And so, look at the y-axis. You're looking at 4 cents difference between operating a certain set of pumps and a different set of pumps. So, given that the electrical cost for seawater is 70% of the whole cost of the seawater, it's important to try to optimize that. And we're now able to start doing that. So this data was presented to our last board meeting, so it's a direct application of what we can start doing with our Scada system, is to start doing this type of analysis, this type of work.
Well, mind if I ask you, what is the difference between the right side and left side? How did you get it lower and higher in cost? Because the pumps were different?
Yes. These were operational. So we had one set of pumps working during this period of time.
Okay.
And changed
Back to the original configuration.
which you can see in the beginning of the
Can you
month.
change back again?
So this is, like Laurence was saying, most of the staff at NELHA are really excited about this. We're going to start logging things in, and we're going to start to learn. We really didn't have. We'll go back to that first diagram that Laurence put up there and said that we were mostly focusing on uptime. So we didn't really look at this. We were just redundancy, make sure we have all the pumps ready to go.
Yeah.
We weren't really looking at efficiency. And now we're moving into a realm of really watching lots of data in order to become more efficient.
Do you think that's something you can actually manipulate to get it back to where it was?
I think we will start to understand the critical aspects of keeping the cost down.
Okay.
And there's other components in that too. So
It's like,
the cost of cents per kilowatt hour from Helco, that's tied into that, right? So over these 2 months, that was pretty much the same. But if you're looking at a full year, you have to realize this is not a direct, correlation with the pump. That there's also other variables in there.
Was that during the period when the cost for oil went down?
No, so for these 2 months, it's pretty stable. So that's not an issue here. But I'm just pointing that out.
Need-
There
Need to
are.
plot the oil cost on the same graph
Yeah.
to show.
we've actually
Electricity
done that.
costs.
I've done that already. We've plotted West Texas Intermediate crude with Helco prices, and there's a direct relationship.
Oh, yeah.
You can correlate that. So
But there's a lag. Well, there used
There's
to be
a
when I last
little
did
bit of a
that.
lag.
There's
Helco,
Becoming
there's a
less and
lag.
less of a
The
lag.
Costco, there's no lag at all.
Trees going up is right.
So next steps. We like to instrument our clients so that we can understand their daily and seasonal patterns. So what that means is we have old paddle wheel flow meters. We're going to try to move over to we call them mag meters. They don't have any moving parts, so we'll have less problems with biofouling and other issues that we've had over time. And we want to not only instrument them, but bring that signal back into the Scada system so that would have real-time data to share with our clients. We like to work a lot on the analysis of the data. We're logging lots and lots of data, so there's going to be lots of people combing through all this, trying to graph it in all different ways to understand how we can test different operational modes in order to become more efficient while maintaining our uptimes. We want to optimize some better pump controls. And the key here is pressure. What we know is that pressure is a critical part of the cost of delivery water. It's basically, if you think of it as lifting, the higher the pressure, the more you're lifting the water, the more energy you need to lift that water up to the top of the hill. So if we can work with our clients and find out what is the minimal pressures we need to have in our distribution systems, then we can drop down to those set points and maybe we can shave 2-3 cents a kilowatt, 2-3 cents per K-gallon of delivered water. We want to add additional oceanographic measurements. I'm sure most of you have probably seen these YSI sondes. They can do all kinds of crazy measurements in a little package, and we like to drop these into our sumps. And I think it'd be really great to have a oceanographic portal of all these different things like dissolved oxygen turbidity. Perhaps we can look at nutrients, we can look at various things in real time and have that all on a portal here at NELHA so that our clients and the general public can kind of look at like what we have for the weather station and be sort of the same thing for our oceanographic station. And then we also would like to add additional solar resources in order to help with our continuing efforts in the energy sector to attract more clients to test more storage and other types of devices that can help us in that area. And then finally, to develop a portal on our website to deliver all this data to you guys. So that's our next steps. I would say, I'm not even going to say steps, I'm thinking that's a journey. So we have a lot of work ahead of us to do. So is there any questions on our next steps? Any additions that anybody want to put in there? It's a long list. Yes?
Have you or are you going to run basically pump curves? Efficiency curves on your pumps? I mean, you have data sheets, right? But
the manufacturer tells you what the efficiency of their pumps. So what we need to do is figure out how to design this system. So as we go forward, we're going to be replacing older pumps, and we're going to have I'd say heart-to-heart conversation within our own staff and also with the clients. Does it make sense to configure this pump station with these types of pumps that would deliver this amount of water at the maximum efficiency? So it's about figuring out future plans and also seeing what we can do within our own pump distribution system. So it's a really difficult question that we are going to address really soon because we would like to purchase new pumps and other large equipment as our older stuff needs to be retired.
Are you going to charge us for the new meters?
Of course.
No, the idea is not that we would, that's the concept right now. So that we would instrument all of the tenants with these new systems.
NREL's going to pay for it?
We'll see.
What
What are the energy costs?
Or the energy cost or the
Electricity costs for the site.
For the site, it's about $120,000 a month.
Just for power.
Just for power. So if we can shave a few cents here and there, that can make a big deal for us.
Yeah, it's
like
it's
a
half
new
of our
car.
budget. It's half of our budget, but it's break even. Like it's not something we make money off of
No.
at all. So and we can talk a little bit about the energy stuff. There's a couple more slides. So this is the small scale storage system I was talking about a little bit before, the Akan system. No, I was going to use it now. So the Akan system, that one is already installed, and we'll be using about a third of the 36 kW PV solar system that was installed under the NREL grant. And we have a second one that will be going up, which is Emergy Power Systems, and that's a vanadium flow battery. And the others, we're still, sort of working out the details on, what exactly in which one. We only have space for 3, so there's really only space for 1 more. We would like to have amber kinetics, because the flywheel is a very much different system. It's not chemistry based, it's a mechanical system, and it's was of high interest to Helco. So we would really like to have that one there. So we're still working on that. On the Akan, a little bit more detail. So the PV array is right across from Sid's. So he gets to see it every day, but it's basically right in the front of our research campus, and so we're installing the Akan battery on the DC side, so that's why we have it right next to the solar panels, and this whole set right here is devoted to provide power for the Akan battery, and for us, what it means is a loss in whatever the inefficiency of the battery is. So we're hoping it won't be too much of a loss, but but it'll probably be a little bit. The whole point of the project is for them to demonstrate this type of battery. They have a 1 megawatt system going in a little bit further north on the Kohala coast, so this is also important for them to show this battery and be able for people to come in and kick the tires and see how well it does function in this environment.
You're using future tense. What's the status of getting this working?
Say that again?
You were using future tense in terms of whether having the system actually hooked
Yeah,
up.
so we installed it in February, and right now we're waiting on a final approval from Helco. So the
Just
PV
like
system,
everybody
the
else on
PV,
the
yeah.
island.
Well, the PV system we turned on a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. So that's on, and this is basically a slight modification to that PV system. So we're just waiting for the approval for that. So we hope that'll be soon.
Do you foresee that maybe with all those acres you got, there will be a day when you can provide all the energy we need from solar or something? Some kind of
Okay.
alternative.
Yeah, we're I mean, these are the baby steps, I guess, into going in that direction.
Right.
As far as, we're the natural energy lab, and we now have natural energy. That's
Do you
been
think it will be
produced.
solar or?
There's a good chance a big part of it will be solar. So we have pipelines that are sized for a 1 megawatt, but that's 1 megawatt, that's not net. So we wouldn't be able to power everything with that. And we certainly wouldn't be able to power our plants. So far we've been talking about our pump station needs. Our clients also have energy needs, and a lot of them do have PV systems on there, but the thing about PV is that we're in one of the most highly penetrated grids as far as renewable, so there's going to be a limit to how much more PV we can put in the park unless we also figure out the storage part of the equation. And so this is why this initiative is in place.
The other big parameter that came up when we've tried to do PV systems in the past is that the load for the pumps is relatively constant 24 hours a day, and so your storage system is an absolutely critical part of making the PV work. That's why it's always been that's the big issue.
Right. Yeah. Very good point.
So this is actually that same picture you saw in the beginning, the research campus, and all the components of the microgrid, and where we're going in terms of adding components to the system. The PV testbed that I've been talking about is right here at the entrance. So for those of you who are not familiar, it's at the very end of the road. If you go to the end of that road, our admin offices are down there, and you enter it into a 6-acre gated area where small projects are done and projects that need to be incubated before they move out to the technical park. That's where that happens. So we have a building that we're currently renovating. It'll be done in less than a year at this point, and that will be offices and conference room space and meeting space for projects that are being incubated. But that said, all of the bright yellow areas are areas where we have rooftop space that we can put up to 200 kW of PV. And the idea is that we would also associate that with batteries, energy storage batteries, and those would go into these areas. So we currently have we just finished an application to the Department of Energy to do just that, to allow for a mid-scale system to be implemented at NELHA. And this is sort of a diagram showing the different components. And you can see that the Scada system, which is basically these two components right here and up top, are intrinsic parts to attracting this type of a project here, because they're components that already exist and we don't need to fund separately. What we do need to fund is the 200 kW PV that would go on the rooftops and the inverter and battery storage systems. And we've teamed up with two companies, Apparent and Energy, who are basically going to provide those systems. And on the right side of the equation, I'm sorry.
Contribute something?
Say that again?
Will they contribute something?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is a 50% cost share, which means that 50% comes from DOE, the other 50% has to come from the various partners who are involved. And these are the various partners who are involved: NELHA, Sandia, and NREL, which we continue to work with, Imagy, Apparent, the two private entities I just spoke of, Hawaiian, or HECO, and the County of Hawaii and the Hawaii State Energy Office. So we think we have a strong team. We hope we'll be successful. There's no guarantee. It's one of our first proposals that we're putting into the Department of Energy, so we'll see. And then on the right-hand side of the equation is the installation of smart meters. So this is on the electrical side, not on the flow meter side. And real users. So there's a pump station down at the research campus. There are different various aquaculture projects, and that building that we're renovating would also be on the user side. So the advantage of a project like this, it's not just demonstrating in a vacuum, it's demonstrating with real users who are going to need to see results and power that's not too dirty. So I think I'll maybe just stop there as far as, because we're running out of time. I want to leave some time for more questions.
Would you say that we qualify as sort of like a special place where we're really focused on this energy stuff, and that somebody like Tesla would say, "Oh, this is a great place for us to test our batteries"? Are we that special, or are there lots of places like that?
You don't think we're that special?
I do, but it's because I'm focused on my usage of the water, as opposed to the energy part. On the energy side of things, do you think we're special? Or is getting somebody like, Tesla is so big in the news, they've got these new batteries, they're going to power houses, and they're going to revolutionize solar use. And stuff.
Well, I'd say the state of Hawaii is special in the sense that you could already commercialize some of these things. So the whole goal of Hawaii Shines, and I should have mentioned it, is to get to 14 cents per kilowatt hour installation costs for PV and storage. So it's going to be difficult. We're not going to get there the first year, so really we're trying to figure out a path to get to that level. But the 14 cents, that's going to be great for the mainland, right? Because they need it to be that low. For us, we're already at parity. I mean, our cost is so high, and I have a graph which I didn't show this time, Because basically all of the states, and I didn't even mention all the different states on the graph because it doesn't matter, we're 3 times higher. And that's just the state of Hawaii. Then Kona's a little bit more. So we're really here at a place where you can start to commercialize and start demonstrating that these units would work at this price and then work towards lower costs and then apply that to the mainland. So that's why Hawaii as a whole is special. Now we do have issues with us being so far on the Big Island as opposed to being on Oahu. I mean, we're sort of remote, and Hawaii's remote, but Big Island's even more remote. So, I won't say that we don't have challenges, but, I do think that there may be reasons for folks to come out here and test their units out here. And we have been getting a fair amount of interest. So we're moving in that direction.
I think that actually counts as a plus in some ways, that some of these companies are trying to get energy to lightly populated areas or poor areas and stuff. I'm not calling this a poor area, but we count, we're less dense than Honolulu is, so they're trying to figure out ways to provide power for those kinds of places.
It's with federal money to say it's rural.
Okay.
Yeah, so microgrid testing as well as just the energy. So I've sort of focused a little bit on the energy storage, but the fact that we have a microgrid or the makings of a microgrid, that's also of interest as far as labs like NREL and Sandia, who have wonderful labs, and if you go there, their labs are amazing, but they don't have the real world users on the other end.
Has there been any coordination or talking with Hank Rogers and what they're doing up at Pu'uva'avaa, which is a lot of what you're doing? This group had a tour up there a little while ago. It's pretty amazing what they're doing, and that's all the things that Sid's asking about are happening there already. So
Right.
Well, they're going to do something.
Well, yes.
That's the question.
Yes, so we have been working with them. There was, as far as a project right here on the site, they have been looking at the old Sopuji site, and the idea there would be to outfit that area with PV and then produce hydrogen. So that was an interest that they've had for quite some time now at this point. We did run into some issues as far as a hydrogen test out of HNEI that would also be here, and the main issue was that the school was close by, and even though we don't see any safety issues, there was a perception issue, and so that has curtailed a little bit the enthusiasm as far as doing a hydrogen project right here. But in terms of the energy storage, you're correct. They're doing a fair amount of work up there. And in fact, Amber Kinetics is talking to them as well. They were also going to put a flywheel from Amber Kinetics up there. And there was interest in putting one in both places.
Well, they have a Tesla system too, I think, so at least one.
Yeah. So the idea is not to duplicate efforts that other people are doing, but to add on so that the more this research is being done, probably the better the energy sector.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great.